Hi folks, Joseph Kursky here with you talking about mentoring for geoliteracy, or geomentoring if you will. We are in part 3 of our video series right now. And now in part 3 I'd like to talk about 3 success stories. First of all, these are not the end-all be-all. There are many success stories out there. I am very familiar with these because I was involved with them, but by no means am I the only geomentor out there. By no means am I the best geomentor out there. But these are something that I'm familiar with, and so I'd love to share these with you. I encourage you to give me feedback in this video series of your own success stories, but more importantly, work with each other and nudge this needle of geoliteracy forward. Here's some success stories that I'd like to share, though. First of all, Art Street Denver. Art Street is a STEM plus arts, so it's a rather unique program for underemployed young people, 15 to 25 years old, in a large urban center, in this case Denver. The focus that they decided years ago was to focus on, at least on the technology side, GIS, video, and web programming. And so, of course, I got involved on the GIS side, and one of the projects was a story map glass recycling bin project. So it started off with, hey, we are going to install, with the help of these students, these young people in Art Street, recycling bins in Denver. They got about a dozen of these from donations and so on. They're going to install these. Where are they going to be located? Well, GIS was a natural fit to figure out where these recycling bins would actually be best deployed or located around Denver. So the students, the young people in the Art Street Denver project got involved with figuring out, using GIS, where these recycling bins would be located. Great. So you got a nice integration of GIS there. I was involved as a geomentor. But one of the coolest things, actually, beyond all of this, was that the students painted the sides of all these glass. These are big glass recycling bins, folks. The students painted those, and so that's where the art part got in. The arts in Art Street Denver. So as they painted them, we videoed the students, these young people, and they talked about, this is the colors I chose. This is the story I wanted to tell on my canvas, which was basically the recycling bin. And these are big, so they got to experiment with size, big size. It was really a cool thing for these young folks to get involved with. One of the students talked about, this is where I grew up, and here's my grandma's house, and I'm painting it on the sides of this glass recycling bin. So each recycling bin ended up telling a story. And the students' narratives were just so compelling and wonderful. So it's a nice integration there of mentoring, STEM, and art, and served a real need in the community by having these glass recycling bins. The second one I'd like to chat briefly about is a partnership with Colorado State University, the National Park Service, the National Geographic Society, and me, being an ESRI representative on the ESRI education team, on something called BioBlitz. Now, BioBlitz is a focused gathering of all the plants, all the animals, and other things in a specific area for 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever they decide. These vary from place to place, but the one I was involved with at Colorado State University involved these federal agencies and ESRI. And what we did was we mentored the students involved in this National Science Foundation funded effort, where the students actually went out and collected data. Then we mapped it. We made story maps. They did some spatial analysis. And these are university level students in this case, all involved with going out into the field, and many of them had never been to Bandelier National Park, New Mexico, where they collected the data. Then they went up to Colorado State University, where we held our mapping workshops, and they understood why space and place and the spatial perspective actually matters when they started mapping the data that they had gathered out in the field. So they used iNaturalist, a smartphone app, to gather the data. Then they mapped it in ArcGIS Online. We made web mapping applications from that, including story maps. Wonderful project. And again, mentoring the students in their university careers beyond the story maps and the GIS part. It's, hey, what are you interested in? How can we help you as mentors to realize your educational and then career goals? That was very rewarding. Third, I, as you may know, teach face-to-face and online courses, professional development for faculty, university faculty, primary and secondary faculty, and also some informal educators as well. In this particular example, I'd like to focus on a K-12 primarily, K-12 primary and secondary professional development opportunity that I and a couple of colleagues taught for educators. Well, the cool thing is that what I'd like to bring up here is that we actually, in one of them, brought 4 students, including Andrew Stickney, to that professional development opportunity. Had to get permission from the parents, of course. These were 9th, 10th graders, 11th graders. So, 15, 16, 17 years old. Brought them to the teacher training because I wanted the teachers to see that students actually can do this. This meaning geotechnologies, GIS, GPS, remote sensing. And also, I wanted the teachers to hear what these students were doing with these tools. It's all one thing for me to say, well, students can do this. Sure, your students can do this. But to actually have real live students actually there telling their story was wonderful. Now, where the geomentoring part came in was that I and my colleagues actually mentored these students, not just during the institute, but beyond. And one of them, as you can read right here, became a GIS analyst for EPA and then other organizations after EPA, actually. But started out, met him through this NASA EOS program by interacting with him in the online environment, saying, "Hey, Andrew, I noticed you're interacting with the teachers quite a bit. That's great. What are you teaching?" And Andrew replied saying, "I'm not teaching. I'm actually 15 years old." I'm like, "What? That is incredible. Hey, maybe you can come to our Teacher Professional Development Institute and share your story." So that was great. 3 success stories, again, not the end-all be-all, but all involving geomentoring. Now, a couple messages that you as a geomentor, I think, should share with students. First of all, tell those students that they should have at least one connection with an industry professional. If they're interested in health, business, environmental studies, water resources, city planning, I don't care what it is, whatever they're interested in, and even if they don't really know specifically, they're sort of interested in science, great, math, language arts, being a teacher, whatever they're interested in or think they're kind of nudging toward, get them connected with someone in the industry, in that industry. Now, yes, they can do that while they're in secondary school. Yes, you need to follow proper protocol and get them connected in a safe environment, etc. But a lot of students don't realize that they really need to be connected even while they're in high school or secondary school with someone that's actually got that job. Now, sure, it can be someone in their own family, great. But oftentimes, like me, for example, as a 15-year-old, I didn't know any geographers, I didn't know any city planners, and wouldn't that have been cool and wonderful for my own future career planning if I had been connected with someone in that industry? Well, let's try to nudge that needle forward, folks. Second, set the bar at or above industry expectations for all your work in and outside of school. Tell the students that. Tell the students that they should not let their well-meaning instructors set the bar. You students set the bar above what your instructors set. You need to set it above. You need to set it high. Don't just get by with an A grade or a C grade or a B grade or whatever in your class. Set it high. Reach for those goals. Also pay it forward. Help you students help your fellow students. Learn the ropes in whatever industry or field that you're interested in. Reach back to a local high school or middle school, you geomentors, and share with students the powerful journey you're on. This doesn't happen all that often, but getting those secondary students to mentor some of the primary age students, just think if this happened nationally or internationally on a big scale. Wow, wouldn't that be something? Let's see if we can make that happen, folks. Me sleeping at 31 North, 87 West. I know that's kind of geeky, but the point of this is don't put them to sleep. So 6 tips for geomentoring engagement for educators and students who are mentoring as well, but mostly for GIS professionals. First of all, make it engaging. If you're a geomentor, don't go in there and show a bunch of slides. I mean, you may be interested in what you're doing, and maybe some students will, but going into the history of your organization, that's going to be sort of interesting for a few minutes, but make it engaging. So, for example, I've set up a series of geocaching courses, and I've run that at different events. I've got them stored in our zone here out in ArcGIS Online. I've got themes of like aliens land at City Park and the history of transportation in central Denver, and so on and so forth. So these are some resources that I hope are helpful. Setting up a geocaching course. Getting out there on the landscape is the point. Use quizzes. I've got, for example, a Weird Earth quiz. Get them engaged. Now, I know that geography is not just the whys of where, and where is, Socotra, an island off of Northeast Africa. But get them to think about, oh, this looks intriguing, this sort of eye of the earth, the Rishat structure. What are its origins? Here's SOS on the landscape. Is this, some ABBA song? Well, yes, SOS is an ABBA song, but why is that on the landscape? So this is a Weird Earth quiz that's all based on ArcGIS Online. So you really get into satellite imagery, what's web mapping, so you can thread in some geotechnologies in there. Other quizzes use street view images to city or country, whatever. The point is to make it interactive, make it engaging, get those students to participate. And even if you just have one computer and one projector, that's fine. Incorporate spatial analysis. There is no shortage of things that you can do. There are lessons available on the Learn GIS site, Learn ArcGIS site. There are geo inquiries. There are other things that you can do to incorporate spatial analysis and actual lessons into your presentation. I use John Snow's cholera data lesson because it's engaging. It's a historical event. It's it's critical. People are dying. It's a serious issue, and so on. Map the business types in your city. What are the relationship between, for example, in number 3 here, two business types: car washes versus bail bonds, or florists, or antiques. Some businesses are clustered. Some businesses are dispersed. So use those things in someone's local community to get those students engaged with, well, I never really thought about the spatial pattern of business. You mean Starbucks is just not located wherever, or Home Depot, or Dairy Queen, or any other chain? No, there's specific reasons why they're located where they are. So begin with some simple but effective web maps: 600 world cities, plate tectonics, population change, tornadoes, watersheds, etc. All searchable in our education blog. Show some web mapping applications. Some of my favorite ones are the Landsat Change Matters viewer, where you're looking at changes over space and time. For example, Mount St. Helens, or the Aral Sea, or the changes in Dallas-Fort Worth, or changes in the Greenland ice sheet. Whatever it happens to be, you can look at it with this Change Matters viewer website. And it's a web mapping application. You can change the dates, you can change the scale, and so on. So very powerful. And it's not just Mount St. Helens. It's it's global, so you can take a look at, for example, the Aral Sea, and look at changes in the Aral Sea over time, and why it's shrinking, and why do we care if it's shrinking, and what are the environmental, economic, social ramifications of the actual sea shrinking in different time periods. We can take a look at different years. Okay, so take a look at some of those web mapping applications. Very engaging, but don't just dwell on one of them, because some students might be really interested in population change, others might be interested in natural hazards. So mix it up a bit. No shortage of things that you can do. Core messages, I like to use Gritzner's What's Where, Why There, and Why Care document, for example. That's a very compelling one. I've got a link to it on the AP College Board site. A nice framework to use. I also have my own working definition of spatial thinking that you're welcome to use as well. And rely more on demos and stories, less on canned presentations that may be static. Don't get me wrong, presentations can be very compelling as well. So, other tips, see my list here in this particular blog essay about creating and conducting guest presentations for students if you go in and visit a classroom or do something online as a webinar. Okay? And here are a couple of other things I wanted to share with you all. Geomentoring ideas. First of all, gather and map data via crowdsourcing. You can set up a story map where students are participating in a crowdsourced story map. You can go out in the field and collect photographs and build a map of the campus that you happen to be teaching at, as I did here at Texas A&M. Welcome to Aggie Land. Go out and use Survey 123 or the Collector app to gather data on tree species, tree height, porches, houses, historical buildings, and so on and so forth, as we've done right here. So no shortage of things that you can actually collect out in the field in your local community. Okay? Take photos, look at those photos, etc. Story maps. Communicate with maps. Show students different story maps. I've got some examples in here. Wimberley, Texas boots. Something that I actually didn't think of until I was actually on the ground in Wimberley on a field trip, my own field trip, and then I discovered these boots out there on a variety of different themes. Birds of Texas, history of Texas, landforms, ecoregions of Texas, and so on. So These are a public art project in this town of Wimberley. There's no, again, shortage of things that you could work on with students as a geomentor. Maybe the issue in a particular community isn't public art. Maybe it's water quality. Maybe it's that big storm they had 5 years ago. Maybe it's graffiti. Maybe it's a dangerous intersection. Maybe it's a series of crimes, locations of businesses, changes in the community over time, new housing developments and how that's affected the community. Maybe the community is shrinking in size, and what does that mean? So get out in the field and actually collect some data and map it and analyze it. Here's another one I've got on a proposed new trail. This is the city of Osceola, Iowa, and their proposed trail along a power line and pipeline right-of-way. So is this the best location for the trail? Let's have some debate about it. Okay, so those are some tips, some advice pieces, some strategies on setting up a geomentoring program, how to be a geomentor, how to conduct presentations as a geomentor, and so on. I hope that's been helpful. Again, there's 3 parts in this video series, and feel free to contact me at any time about this. And this whole theme has been about mentoring for geoliteracy or geomentoring. Thanks for being with me. I look forward to hearing from you. Go out and be a geomentor. Thanks.